Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab, sponsored by CPA Practice Advisor, with your hosts, Randy Johnston and Brian Tankersley.
Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab. I'm Randy Johnston with my co-host Brian Tankersley. We were so pleased to be invited to Thomson Reuters Synergy Conference this year, but at the last minute, I had a personal family conflict and couldn't go. So I asked Brian to cover the event for us. I was sad not to be there, very sad, because there's so many Thomson Reuters users that we get to meet face to face and so many of the Thomson Reuters team. And there were some very important goings on. Brian gave me a call briefing the event. Dave Weil spoke to me after the event, in fact, reached out during the event saying, I'm sorry you weren't here. We need to talk. So we've got some insights for you that you only get by attending an event like this and by having long-term relationships with so many of these people. So Brian, when you were telling me all this, I was like aghast, agog at how much had changed. Talk to me about it.
It was such a great conference because I got to meet the new people there. I saw some old friends, certainly, but I got to meet the new people there, and they're really shaking things up. We hadn't heard a whole lot, and when you think about Thomson, a lot of people think about UltraTax, which is honestly one of the legacy products in their stack of applications, and so. They did end on VO tax a couple of years ago. That was their effort to get a cloud-based tax application. And they're but they're still innovating pretty heavily. They're doing great things in audit. They have APIs available in their products, but not in the legacy CS apps. But again, they're actually looking at doing APIs into the on-premises UltraTax application, kind of like Sage has with Sage Business Cloud, where they've got the add-on. They've got the API that kind of overarches the whole thing.
Well, and as you know, in April, I talked to our friend Louis, who's managing Go File Room now, and the APIs are in Go File Room. So,
yeah. And those APIs have been around for a while, and the other cool thing is they're not charging for APIs. So many people are monetizing APIs today, and it increases the expense. And Louis, and again, everybody there said no, we're not. Dave Weil too said no, we're not charging for APIs, which I hope they can maintain.
Great. Yeah, I think that is great. Sorry to talk over you there, but that's exciting, as you can tell. I couldn't even hardly keep quiet for you to speak because that's a big deal. Now, why is it such a big deal, listeners? Bottom line here is most of these major publishers, Wolters Kluwer, Thomson Reuters, and Intuit and the like, have all had a walled garden mentality. You can't get your data out of our garden. So they put up a wall. APIs are kind of a nice way to pass data in and out. And we are recommending that, particularly in bigger firms, that you leverage the APIs, as Brian would call them, digital plumbing. And, he did get to speak with Dave Weil, who's now the general manager for audit within Thomson Reuters Tax and Accounting. And remember that Dave Weil was the creator of what was ePace, became CCH Engagement, and of SurePrep, which was sold to Thomson Reuters for $500 million. So Dave is very innovative when it comes to technology forward vision.
And the thing I'll say here too is since he sold SurePrep for $500 million to he and his partners at SurePrep sold for $500 million. The thing that I would just generally say is that Dave has the financial flexibility that he can say what needs to be done, and he doesn't care. He doesn't have to care if he hacks people off. Now Dave's a good enough business person that he's not going to do that, but Dave has the flexibility because he's now the general manager of audit, and Dave now has the flexibility to really take a free hand. So because the tax business and the research business, TR is overshadowed by the legal business, which has tripled the revenue of tax and accounting. Okay, but audit, there is nobody else in audit. So Dave kind of, the way I look at it here is Dave kind of has a blue ocean where he can go do what he needs to do and make audit great again, I guess, is there.
And so, as you know, both of us always admired Melissa Yard's work creating Advanced Flow, which
Oh
is now
yeah.
called Engagement Manager. And of course, we had the evolution of the PPC Smart Aid tools into Checkpoint Engage, which is now called Guided Assurance. And, this evolution of their cloud-based platform with Dave driving that shows promise as I would see it. And Dave and I did talk about quite a number of things that I would consider more confidential. But, when listening to his enthusiasm and vision and his independent nature that you've just described, Brian, he was very clear about what he was going to try to do, and then that's why I appreciated the conversation with him so much. But
I think he's, if I had to compare him to a figure in technology, I think he's close. I think he's pretty close to the Steve Jobs of accounting technology. And maybe he's a little offbeat. He's a little different. Um, he's made some pretty amazing things happen, with ePace and with SurePrep and the SurePrep outsource and the methodologies he set up there. And now with some of the things, so I'm quite excited to see what and one more thing, are going to be coming from him in the future.
yeah. So in fact, you and I both know about those at this point. But speaking of SurePrep, what's happening there?
Well, they've got auto categorization capabilities with AI and machine learning within Tax Caddy. This is a thing called Review Ready. It is in beta test this tax season, generally available mid-year next year. And the beta test, you can contact your salesperson. They were signing up people. It was limited. They're going to let people do about 100 returns through it per firm. And so it was a way to kind of pilot that and get that going. So that was a very interesting tool here. That again gets them closer to some automated prep. Now in 2024, they're launching later this year. They've got a smart analysis capability to find anomalies or high risk transactions in the cloud audit suite. Okay, again, this is the engagement manager product Randy was just talking about. There is an AI test tool. Now, you've heard us talk about both Validus and Validate in previous technology labs, and I actually got a chance to talk to Jeff Gramlich for a while at Synergy and just to kind of talk to him. But it's pretty amazing the things they're doing and the things that are coming in fairly short order. So right now they're going to, basically they've licensed the Validus platform, and they can pull in all kinds of stuff out of most ERPs and into Validus, and then they have Validate that will again automate the testing and the confirmation. So there's some pretty cool stuff going on there, and again, that's another place where they partnered.
Yeah, and on this point, friends, Brian and I both got a briefing from Jeff at AICPA Engage in mid 24. He'd given us the heads up on what was going to happen. And fundamentally, the Validus tool now can read financials in from any system. We did assist, as a point of disclosure, Validus manual methodologies to recommend which systems they interfaced, and they've been slogging along, kind of like we did with Avalara, who slogged along through 30 or 40 systems, then found a way to really leverage it. They've got that leverage now, and this 1-2 pair you probably want to look at our other accounting technology lab on Validus and Validate just to get a sense of what this is. But it's a really good combination.
And I want you to get that these tools are not exclusive to TR. So if you're a CCH shop, you can use Validus and Validate all day long, every day. They just have licensed some of the technologies to help them ingest the data in from things. And right now, I think
we have recommended Validus and Validate all day long. And the forensics capability of Validate, when I first saw that, I was in your office at the time, Brian.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my George Takei from Star Trek. Oh my, that's really good stuff. But Validus was good from the first time I saw it too. Perfect? No. Usable? Yes. Helpful? Pretty sure. So in any case.
They have gotten incrementally better and better and better over the 10 years we've seen them. Yes. They're the overnight success that nobody knew about for the first 10 years of their existence. They also have the Checkpoint Edge Co-Counsel is generative AI that works with the research in there. That's again, we've talked about the co-counsel previously. So just note that's there. There were a number of one-source announcements for enterprises. Most of these are going to be for big clients. A tool for global minimum tax and tax provision, a tool for e-invoice with pre-built ERP integrations for folks that have VAT, some product classification and mapping in one-source global trade, again for the big companies. Now, I actually had a chance to talk for about an hour to Elizabeth Beestrom, the president of TR Tax and Accounting, and she was actually if I'm remembering correctly, she was a Deloitte auditor back in the day, and actually has a daughter that is at USC that is interning at Deloitte now. So it's an interesting, she was very interesting and a breath of fresh air as we discussed in here. We had a very interesting conversation about the future of the profession and kind of where she saw it going. But she generally said, as did Dave, she generally said that they couldn't move fast enough internally. And so they have decided that they were going to get innovation wherever they could. And so if they could innovate internally and get it done, they were going to do it. And if they had to partner, they were going to do it because the profession is moving very rapidly and they want to be the provider of choice.
And that is such a breath of fresh air because I've actually heard it said. So this is repeating conversations, not my opinion. If it's not invented in Dexter, it's not squat. If we didn't create it in Ann Arbor, it's no good.
And we've seen so many good pieces of technology where they didn't have enough market, and instead of adopting the superior technology that didn't get adopted in the market because they didn't have the marketing muscle to do it, instead of doing that, we've seen stuff get killed off in favor of the legacy Thomson apps that were built in Dexter. And it's such a breath. You're right. It's such a breath of fresh air to see them going outside and just saying, "Hey, we're trying to put together the super friends. We're not trying to put together the mafia where everybody's related. We're trying to put together the super friends."
Yeah. So a good example of that, frankly, became Materia, which I met the founders earlier this year. And, about 90 days ago in the late third quarter, Materia got an investment from Thomson Reuters, as I recall, about $4 million, and from four other investors for $2.5 million. Yet Thomson then turned around and just bought the Materia platform, which is an AI-assisted and generative AI platform that does tax audit accounting, summary of documentation. And, that's a pretty interesting acquisition for them. I don't know if you got to talk to many of the Materia people, but I've known them for only about a year. But I was pretty impressed with what they had. But one of their restraints, as I saw it, is they had only licensed Checkpoint content, which put them at risk, as I told them early in the year. I said, well, that means your only path is an exit to Thomson, as I see it, because if Thomson won't license the content to you, your platform will implode. And, I'm pleased that it's evolved this way because it's a good bit of technology.
Yeah, and it's honestly something that this off the wall moonshot thinking is something, the personality type that does that doesn't go take a 9-to-5 with a Fortune 500 company like TR. I mean, they want to go do their thing, and they want to try new crazy things that don't fit into the consultant world. Now, this is a big deal for the people that are on Virtual Office CS, I think, is that they moved over to the Microsoft Azure platform from Amazon Web Services. And they said they actually had in their opening keynote, they had almost an apology from the CTO, I think it was, that, and he wasn't there. He recorded a message and he was minding the shop while everybody else was off in Orlando doing the meeting. But he said they had set up to do much more load testing to validate that their services aren't going to buckle under peak loads. And so that, I think, was a very big deal because of Microsoft's, I think Microsoft has a superior stack for machine learning and for AI to what AWS has and what some of the others have. furthermore, it's going to give them better integration potentially with Microsoft Intra ID, formerly Active Directory. And I think the beautiful part about that is that it really makes it a lot easier for everything to work truly seamlessly, because you're dealing with the products again that everybody's using in the profession. Now, in the opening keynote, they had again, they talked about an online client profile dashboard at ultratax.com, an offline mode for single sign-on, a fillable PDF organizer. They had some new things in UltraTax. In Go System, they had a tax return import-export feature and some increased help content. For SurePrep, they had a live sync with Go System Tax RS. So again, they're moving forward in those areas. An audit, they talked about the improved UI in the engagement manager, and formerly again advanced flow and guided assurance. And they've said that they've improved the speed of accessing and opening files. Again, this is another place where I think the Azure data centers generally seem to be, from the folks I've talked to that are running them, they're running on these platforms, the Azure things seem to be more robust in scaling in peak times. And they also have the ability to edit PDFs directly in the application. Okay. Now, for the other things they talked about, they had some new 1040 resources for the Practice Forward advisory methodology that they're teaching. And they actually said they wanted me to come to one of their Practice Forward things to talk to folks and learn more things about it. Onvio had some new custom fields, dashboards, and fillable PDFs. And then in Go File Room, our friend Louis has gone through it and set up that we have 50 steps now in a workflow, and they can also do self-service document restore. So again, some pretty big deals here. And so, again, as we look at these, this slide is kind of my summary in here of the major announcements. Again, the new client dashboard, enhanced data import export in UltraTax, in Go System, better integration with UltraTax, and the release of Live Sync for Go System. For audit intelligence, we talked about the alliances with Validus, Validate, and an alliance with Audit Miner. Audit Miner is the lovely and talented Kelly Mann's startup that is rethinking everything surrounding DOL limited scope audits, and is really making it possible to ingest and use trust statements that you get from these financial institutions, and really make these audits really much more automated. So it's a very big deal there. They've announced APIs for Engagement Manager are going to be coming out in Q1 2025. So now we'll have a cloud-based engagement tool, the former Advanced Flow, now Engagement Manager, that integrates with the guidance and has APIs at no charge. And so I think that's a pretty big deal as well. They announced the Review Ready stuff, where, again, it's a new feature that includes the Gen AI assistance. They expect it to save a couple hours on every return. It incorporates data input using SurePrep and uses the Tax Caddy tax organizer. And then finally, they're launching an advisory solution to help firms develop their advisory offerings, and again, the remaining strategies. Okay, so
yeah. So now, I'm listening to Brian summarize those. A couple of key points that he made. Being able to save a couple hours in a tax return. I heard a similar claim from Dave in the audit tools and the evolution of the advisory services. Thomson led that at a point in time. There are some advisory strategies that others are trying to build. And Brian and I will talk to you about those in other technology labs we have done in the past. We'll do it in the future. But just recognize that I was really surprised at how many advisory platforms got created in the past year. And many of those are now worthy of us discussing them with you and suggesting that it's time to adopt.
Yeah. Now, the other thing to move forward with, Randy, is going to be the Checkpoint Edge Co-Counsel. This is their AI product, and this is kind of this is a product that's been in market for a while and has actually done quite well. It is on AWS right now. I don't know if it's going to migrate to Azure or not. I suspect it will, but we'll see where that goes. They do have a generative AI assistant, so you can get answers to complex research things. They also have an AI assisted research skill on Checkpoint Edge. And again, they've taken care here to make sure that this is going to give the folks that have it answers that are correct. And so they've kind of dialed down the the hallucinations that are associated with some of the large language models, and they've set up a methodology that is going to give more trusted, vetted content as opposed to just making things up out of whole cloth, like AIs want to do. Now, for simplification of tax research, they've gone through again, and there's a dialogue you can do with Gen AI. You can ask questions in everyday language. It'll provide relative answers with links in a formal technical manner for sophisticated users, and it will also write client correspondence in a simplified manner. They again, the idea here again is to save that 2 hours, and so that's in here. Now, they also had a vision for what professional AI assistants, and this is, I think this is probably the closing slide that we're going to talk about today. But looking at this, though, the idea is that you have co-counsel as your AI assistant, and then tax research is incorporated into that with Checkpoint Edge. The tax workflow is incorporated in with Review Ready, the audit workflow automation with Audit Intelligence, the advisory with co-counsel for tax planning, the skills where it can draft communications, review, extract, summarize, do those kinds of things. And they're working on more AI skills to come. It is, again, they're doing authoritative content that's part of the Checkpoint platform that is again, that's well respected and one of the leading platforms in the industry. And again, they're being very fastidious about the AI capabilities, the platforms, and the securities. They're trying to get the best of all out there. And again, they're doing this with free APIs, which I think is a pretty big deal. Because again, you're not going to solve every problem the way you want to with one firm, one organization solutions. You're going to have some point solutions that you apply in different places. And this makes it, the free APIs are going to make it quite a bit easier to do that.
Yeah. So for our listeners on this point, as you know, if you're listening only, we do have video distribution on these on YouTube and other platforms if you'd like to see them that way. But also note that kind of a big, I'll call it departure, strategic maneuver that Thomson has done. Brian and I were both fairly concerned with the dominance of legal, as he mentioned earlier in this episode, that legal would drive a lot of this. And that was true with the AI-assisted research on Westlaw. I think it was called Westlaw Precision. And we were afraid that this Westlaw legal AI would be the kind of the path forward for Thomson Tax and Accounting. With the Materia acquisition, which is doing those draft communications and reviews and extractions, the Materia platform on AI seems to be a good accounting-centric private AI platform. So like competitor Wolters Kluwer had built their own private AI platform out of Switzerland, in effect, Thomson Reuters moved fast by doing an acquisition of somebody who had built an AI-centric platform. Now, that may be a little overstated there, Brian, but that's kind of my view of what's happened here. And so instead of using the legal AI, there's actually a accounting AI that is the building block going forward.
And I think honestly that is huge for TR. I think because and it's huge for the profession because we know legal and accounting are similar, but they're second cousins. They're not brother and sister. Okay, and so as we look at this, I think it's important that we get the right tool set for the profession. And that tool set is going to be different than the one that legal uses because legal is just different.
Just different. Yeah. So, and the other thing that I want to call out, and there's lots of smart branding people out there. And through the years, we've watched a lot of brands get squandered. And, over the recent past, we've talked about CS, the creative solutions applications in Thomson getting long in the tooth and getting replaced. We can see a trend line on that now. And the other thing to note is co-counsel is kind of an AI branding. So whenever you see AI or co-counsel in a Thomson name right now, that indicates there's some AI assistance is really what's in there. So, this really leads me to be even more sad, Brian, that I wasn't at Synergy with you because, being able to talk to, Elizabeth Thompson. So, the new CEO.
And I didn't give you the color commentary, all the color commentary I had, but I talked to the folks that were in charge of all the product lines, including the research product lines, and again, the tax products as well as the audit products, as well as the division president. And I've got to say that they're all very impressive people, and I think they get the message, and they are going to move forward. We really had a big changing in the guard over the last 7 years or so at TR, and it looks like they have, and they had a huge reorg where they switched from being almost an autonomous business division to being part of a bigger entity. And we were quite anxious about how that was going to work out. And again, we thought that the legal was going to suck up all the resources, and then the accounting folks were going to be left with scraps. But then they acquired SurePrep, and then they acquired Materia, and they proved us wrong. And now Dave is in charge. Dave, one of the most innovative folks in the industry, is in charge of audit. And so I'm quite excited about where we're headed, where they're headed. And I think it's going to be fun to watch Thomson, CCH, Intuit, and Iris duke it out over the next few years, because I think the winner is going to be the profession, because the right tools are going to be created, because the competition is going to force everybody to bring their A game all day, every day.
Yeah. So, in this session, as you might know, Brian and I, well, we'll use George Carlin's word here, we get to learn some stuff. And as we learn stuff, we really like sharing stuff with you, but we try to be factual, but we also give you at least enough of our informed opinion of where we think things are going. It is such a pleasure to see Thomson Reuters make this turn, because when I see reputable companies stumbling, it bothers me. And it is so nice to see these guys walking steady and picking up the pace and starting to run.
Well, just to reinforce this, I will just say that the best days of QuickBooks Online and the best days of small business accounting were when Xero and QBO were absolutely in that war to try to take over that market. And that has kind of waned, and it makes me sad right now, because the innovations aren't happening as rapidly there. But the good news for everybody here is that the innovations are going to be coming fast and furious from everybody. And we are truly, in addition to the changes because of private equity and consolidation and things like that, we are truly living in interesting times. And so stay tuned. We'll try to keep you up to date to the extent we can on the podcast.
Yeah. And, just two other kind of generic non-Thomson related comments of that same ilk. We are always excited when competitors are duking it out, when they're fighting with each other, because as you said, Brian, the profession wins. And the same thing is going on with AI platforms right now. We're generally, for CPA firms, recommending Microsoft Copilot 365 because we believe it to be the safest platform with your data, as opposed to Perplexity or Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or Llama, but we like the competition because the AIs are improving rapidly. And it makes me, at this time of year, reflective, because we are going to make forecasts for you in another accounting technology lab on the future. But it makes me reflective because we're turning into the 40th year of Microsoft Excel next year. And having been around with Dan Bricklin for VisiCalc and helping create Lotus 123 and designing the accounting format in Excel, I was thinking about Dorothy Liu just the other day in that conversation where nobody would use the accounting format in Excel. And pivot tables, what do you mean? People want something like that? Nah, I don't think so. So we've been very fortunate to watch these products leapfrog each other through the years. I am super excited about the future, whereas I've been somewhat despondent about 2023 and 2024 because it was like so many of our friends and publishers were lost. I think maybe we've turned the corner, that things are much brighter in the future. And so, with that in mind, we hope that you'll continue to revisit us. Remember, you can see this cast on our video platforms as well. But in the meantime, we appreciate you listening in, and we'll talk to you again very soon in another Technology Accounting Lab. You have a great day.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We'll be back next Saturday with a new episode of the Technology Lab from CPA Practice Advisor. Have a great week.